For what reason has Zoro's eye been closed since the time skip, and how might it be connected to the special eyes of characters like Imu, Mihawk, or even Nisha? We know that the Holy Knights and the Gorosei use the so-called Mark of the Abyss, which grants them very extraordinary abilities. That this mark is linked to the underworld is only fitting when you consider the name, especially when we also take into account that the Gorosei use demonic transformations, and it's almost certain that Imu does as well. On top of that, we can be quite sure that there is an underworld in One Piece. After all, even in the Holy Land, the serpent of hellish flames was mentioned, and we've seen various supposedly demonic entities in One Piece, such as Hakuba or Ashura. Recently, I made a video where I discussed the idea that devil fruits might have been created with the help of the souls of real demons and divine beings. Devil fruits would thus be a way to obtain the powers of these entities. But who says it's the only way? In the Holy Land, it's said that the god of the forest tamed demons, while the sun ignited the flame of war. I suspect this passage refers to the conflict between the founders and the ancient kingdom with Joy Boy. After all, this passage appears in the Second Age, which is almost certainly the Void Century. The sun would represent the ancient kingdom, which leads me to believe that the god of the forest was on the side of the founders. When we combine this with the abilities of Imu, the Gorosei, and the Holy Knights, I suspect that this verse refers to the moment when the god of the forest secured the powers of those celestial dragons, the Mark of the Abyss, and so on. And that is indeed an interesting and important point. If Imu and company truly possessed demonic powers that were obtained in a way unrelated to devil fruits, which would fit with the introduction of the Gorosei transformations, then it would mean that there are, in general, alternative ways to gain such powers without using devil fruits. And that brings us back to Zoro and other characters with those eyes, who, as far as we can tell, haven't eaten a devil fruit. Let's take a look at all the characters who possess these eyes, or at least all the ones that come to mind. It's very possible there are more. With the length of One Piece, it's pretty easy to overlook an eye or two. If you think of more characters, feel free to let me know in the comments. We have Mihawk, Emu's Robin, Zunisha, Cavendish, and Caribou. Two of these characters, at least two of them, we don't know for sure about some, are devil fruit users, Caribou and Robin. Interestingly, neither of them has eaten a Zoan-type fruit. We have one Paramecia and one Logia. Yet, Zone fruits are typically the ones most associated with intelligent beings like demons. If devil fruits truly contain the souls of demons and/or divine beings, and the eyes are somehow connected to this, then this would imply that Paramecia and Logia fruits also contain the souls of such entities. As for me, I believe that is indeed the case. Just because zone fruits are based on living beings doesn't mean there can't also be demonic or divine entities that represent Paramecia or Logia powers. Take the flame fruit for example. How easy would it be to imagine that this fruit is based on an elemental being that simply embodies the concept of fire within the One Piece world? I even think we have a pretty strong hint that Paramecia and Logia fruits are also based on intelligent beings that might be different in nature from those of Zoans, but are still living entities. Look at Robin. She has eaten a Paramecia fruit, and normally, her fruit behaves like a standard Paramecia. However, her ultimate trump card is a transformation ability that much more resembles a zone, and coincidentally, it's a demonic transformation. In chapter 1147, Robin prepares to fight a Holy Knight. I think it only makes sense that she is preparing to use her full power. Accordingly, I find it very interesting that it's precisely in that moment that she gains this special eye form, as if she's unleashing her true demon power in that instant. The thing is, we've seen awakened devil fruits before, without any sign of these special eyes. And normally one would expect that if these eyes were about becoming one with the demon inside the fruit or something like that, they would show up at least in that moment. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So I suspect there's something more going on here, especially since there's another reason that makes this topic more complex. The Gorosei, in their transformed states, also have special eyes, but ones that differ from Emu's eyes. Maybe that's simply because they are subordinates of Emu. Maybe it's due to the specific demons they are connected to. Or maybe there's an entirely different reason related to awakening. What if there's more than just the normal kind of awakening? What if there is another path to power? A path that would allow someone to directly access the power of a specific demonic or even divine being, one that normally wouldn't be available to them. We've seen how Cavendish gained these eyes during his internal struggle for control with Hakuba. The thing is, Cavendish hasn't eaten a devil fruit. His relationship with Hakuba is different from that between a devil fruit user and their fruit. I don't think we've ever seen a devil fruit's will manifest itself on such a powerful level as Hakuba did. I also find it quite interesting that Cavendish, at least in the anime, was shown with two different eye colors. However, it's hard to say whether that was simply to visually represent his duality. If there's more behind it, perhaps the color indicates who is in control, red might represent the demon, as seen with Imu and Mihawk, while green or blue could symbolize the host. Just a side note, back to the point, we haven't seen any devil fruit where the will expresses itself as strongly as with Hakuba, and if we have seen it, it wasn't clearly identifiable. Maybe this is because devil fruits are special. They might suppress the demonic or divine presence better than the bond Cavendish has with Hakuba, and if that's the case, then it could explain why it's especially difficult for a devil fruit user to form this unique kind of link. That could also explain why we've only seen this phenomenon in truly exceptional cases, like with Robin and Caribou. The other beings we've seen it with are all extraordinary, and are not devil fruit users, at least as far as we know. We don't know whether they have devil fruits. Cavendish, Mihawk, Zunisha, and Imu. Among them, Zunisha and Imu are likely special cases. But when it comes to Zoro, the other two Cavendish and Mihawk are especially interesting. If we follow the theory so far, there are various ways to access the power of these demonic or divine beings. There are devil fruits, then there's the method used by the god of the forest, which I suspect is linked to the mark of the abyss. But who's to say that's all? I mean, Cavendish doesn't seem to have used any of those methods to bring out Hakuba, especially since I strongly doubt he summoned Hakuba intentionally at all. So I'd say there must be another way. Demons that are awakened through weapons, perhaps through cursed swords. Zoro, Mihawk, and Cavendish all have something in common. They're all swordsmen. Cavendish wields Durandal, a sword of the Meito class. We don't know its exact rank, but it's definitely a special blade. Even more special is of course Mihawk's sword. Zoro, on the other hand, possesses several blades. Warudo Ichimonji is his oldest and one of his finest. Then there's Enma, and let's not forget Sandai Kitetsu. The last one is particularly interesting in this context, since it was introduced as a cursed sword. Who's to say the same doesn't apply to Cavendish's Durandal? The point is, could it be that Zoro's connection to Ashura was forged through Sandai Kitetsu? Personally, I find that very plausible. In that case, Durandal might be what formed the connection between Cavendish and Hakuba. Mihawk, however, is a different story. He already had those special eyes when he was relatively young, and we don't know if he already possessed Yoru back then. It could just as easily be that some other sword he used back then was cursed and triggered the connection to his demon, assuming the theory is correct and he actually has a demon. This brings us to another very interesting point. Does it require a cursed sword for the swordsman to use demonic powers, or is the cursed sword simply necessary to form the connection between the demon and the swordsman? I find it quite plausible that it's the latter, at least once the connection has been fully established. And that brings us to the core of the matter. Zoro first used Ashura's abilities during his fight with Kotaku, but it's hard to say he had truly mastered those abilities at the time. The first time he used this mode, after the time skip within the canon, was during the fight against Kaido. In that moment, he was strong enough with that technique to scar Kaido. Also in this form, he apparently used Conqueror's Haki unconsciously. Still, I would say he hadn't truly mastered the mode. Even then, at the very least, it cost him a tremendous amount of energy. And I doubt that will still be the case by the end of the series if he continues to use these abilities, which would suggest he's still got room to improve. The idea here is that once he reaches that level of mastery, he will also gain the same type of eyes as Imu's and Mihawk, because it would be at that moment that he's fully bonded with Ashura. I could even imagine him not just gaining one of those eyes, but both, which of course raises the question, why is one of his eyes currently closed? I'd suggest it might be because the connection hasn't been fully formed yet. Likewise, I find it very plausible that Zoro might open that eye during his fight against Kaido when he used Ashura's abilities, and that one of his eyes may already have the Mihawk form. He used this ability in chapter 11:10, and if you look closely, he was very careful not to show the side of his face with the closed eye. When I went back and reviewed the panels, you can see them shown here. I have to say, it does look kind of suspicious how Oda drew Zoro, almost as if he deliberately avoided showing that eye. Perhaps because it already has the Mihawk style form, but in a way that Zoro hasn't fully mastered yet. So for now, he might be keeping his eye closed on purpose, so that he doesn't experience what happened to Cavendish. He wants to keep the demon under control until the day comes when he can fully command it. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. If you're interested, you can check out another video of mine right here that I highly recommend. And with that, see you next time, and goodbye.